Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Douglas School Committee to order on September 4th at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to read the Douglas Public Schools mission statement. The Douglas Public Schools offer diverse learning experiences that meet the academic, social, physical, and emotional needs of all of our students. We provide a safe, supportive, and challenge learning environment in which students may achieve academic success and personal growth. Decisions are made in the best interest of our students. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. I'd like to call our student representatives up, Megan Brazo and Emily Ramsdale, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Meg Brazo.
And I'm Emily Ramsdell.
So far, this first week of school has been very successful. Classes have reviewed their syllabuses and now are hitting the ground running. Freshmen are learning how to navigate the new school while sophomores have entered feeling older and more comfortable. For some, juniors are beginning to think about college and other paths they may take after high school. Seniors are beginning to see how close the end of their high school careers are and are using this as motivation to push through their final year. Students are easing into new changes smoothly, and so far attendance has been excellent. Fall sports are also ramping up, which definitely brings a level of excitement to the atmosphere. This time of the year truly brings the school together as a whole, and it is wonderful to see everyone gather together as one big community.
We have also welcomed a new athletic director, Ms. Berard, who has already been working hard for our sports teams, showing her dedication to our school and her role in it. Student Council has their first meeting tomorrow where we will plan details of the annual Haunted Hallways. The date on that is still to be determined. Last year, this was a big hit amongst all grades, primary through the high school. We hope to continue to hold other fundraisers and events throughout the school year that will promote school spirit. Thank you for your time.
Does anybody have any questions? So I just have one question. What grade are you in?
Junior.
We're both juniors.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody here for public comment? Seeing that there is none, we're going to move on. Is there any old business we need to discuss? We're going to move on to new business and the superintendent's report, please.
Right, we have some back-to-school updates. As I said, when we met back in August, a lot of people worked hard to make sure school started successfully. We've been now here, I believe, for 4 or 5 days, and it's been a great start to the school year. Obviously, when you put 1,200 kids and you do all the planning, there are a couple bumps in the roads. Principals will highlight those, but all in all, and by and large, a great start to the school year. You know, you always worry if kids are going to get on the bus, off the bus, and everyone gets home and gets to the right bus stop. I haven't heard anything about buses. Usually hear things with traffic. We haven't heard any issues with traffic at all. Kids are scheduled. I've been in and out of buildings a couple times a day since school started. Great to see teachers teaching, kids learning, and that energy back in schools. We were here yesterday for a meeting, and I popped into cheerleading practice downstairs, said hi to the kids, and today in school, I was in kindergarten in the primary school, and a kid ran by me and said, "I saw you yesterday at the high school." So, which is good to it's good to have that energy back in the building. So really excited to be back. And again, thank you to everyone for such a smooth and great start to the school year. With that said, we have the directors and the principals here just to give a quick update. We're going to start with Dom Sergio, our Director of Technology. Principals are wondering what order we're going to go in. We still don't know.
I get lucky number 1. Good evening. My name is Dominic Sergio. I'm the new Director of Technology for Douglas Public Schools. And I'm just going to give you guys an update for back to school. The two main things are the Chromebooks, the new devices. We got 965 devices for grades 2 through 12. They have all been given out and assigned on the first day of school. We also got 75 new iPads for the first grade and pre-K and K have the older iPads, which is fine. The other big one is Power School. Obviously, I came in over the summer, and it's been a lot of work. Myself, Jake, and Scott have worked really hard to get everything set up and going for the first day of school. For the rollout, we did a training for secretaries, office staff, principals, assistant principals at the end of July. It was 4 days, 3 hours each day, which was a lot, but it also helped everybody kind of get on ready, jump in for the start of school. And following that, the next week, we did a voluntary teacher training, which was a 6-hour event. It was good to see some teachers show up. I know it was summertime and it's always hard to do that, but it was good. We were also able to record that training, so that recording links went out to staff on the first day of school. And we also set up Power School Q&A Zoom sessions that myself and Jake will be running starting next week, every Tuesday after school, to kind of give some additional support. We also created a Power School support form with the link to the staff site so that it's easy to access for staff, and that can also, if they need some more one-to-one help. The biggest piece that the district purchased was the PD Plus component, which is like self-paced, on-demand learning paths and programs specific to your role with Power School. So we've been pushing teachers and everyone to use that as much as they can. They have quick reference cards that give them quick, in case they forgot how to do attendance, things like that. It gives them step-by-step instructions. And I think so far it's gone well. There are some quirks we're still figuring out, things that were done in iPass that have to be done differently in Power School. But other than that, I'm happy with where we're at so far with the rollout.
I think Dom glanced over the massive lift this was.
Yeah.
So aside from everything that has to happen over the summer, the 900 Chromebooks and the 700 and the 70 iPads, just to take everything we had, box them, clean them, and get them out, then to open up and deploy the 900 Chromebooks and make sure they're working is huge. Have they all been deployed?
Yes.
And although it takes a long time for information to filter to me, I haven't heard any issues with the Chromebooks. They're on, they're working, and kids are able to access them. So kudos to you and your staff and Scott and Jake, who's home watching, I'm sure, for getting that up and running. And then obviously the Power School is just huge. And that's just not a September, October lift. That's going to take us through the end of the year. I mean, every time we do progress reports, that's new. Every time we do report cards, that's new. Every time we do semester exams or final exams at the high school, that's new. Course selection, that'll be new. So it's going to be a bunch of firsts from now through the end
I
of the
also
school
didn't
year.
touch on the parent portal piece, which I left out. So that is also new.
Yep.
We got that set up. We have a separate email for to respond to parents, parent portal at douglasps.net, that they can reach out and get access IDs to link their students to their accounts, and they can view schedules, grades, everything online. And there's also a mobile app if they prefer to use that. Students can download it and use it as well. So we got that off and running. Got blasted as soon as I sent out the one call with like 600 emails. But we are caught up, and we are in a good place with that as well.
Questions?
So for that, can you just explain, so students have their own access to the portal and then parents have separate access?
Yes.
Okay. Can they view previous year's grades in the portal yet?
No. As of now, no.
Okay. So if parents or students needed that, is that something we have to call the office for, or will that be up and coming that you could see previous years?
I think that we are importing historical grades for the past 5 years for transcript purposes, mainly at the high school level, so that we can still run transcripts. But I'm not sure about the other schools. I will have to look into that a little bit more.
Okay.
I
I
know-
just know some people couldn't access iPass like pretty early in the summer, so maybe like didn't download.
Last year's report cards?
Last year's report cards,
Okay.
or, yeah, you know, like if you,
Okay, yeah, I never thought about that, yeah.
yeah.
Probably the easiest thing to do would be to call the office
Yeah,
And-
oh my God, poor office staff. Yeah.
But it'll be a while before that merge takes place for prior year's history to upload to from iPass to PowerSchool. That could be weeks or months. So if people are real curious about how someone did in 7th grade English as they're in 8th grade now, probably the easiest thing to do would be to call the office.
Okay.
And the hope is it will be eventually available
Right,
to
we'll
them.
just, right,
It
as we
just-
move on in
yeah.
Power School, okay. And then, a question that I've heard a lot is, now that we're in Power School, do we get to get rid of all of our take-home packets at the beginning of the year? Will they be in the parent portal, and we can check that, yes, all the information is the same?
So we talked about that today at our meeting, about transitioning from a paper thing to an online, and we're going to investigate. The big thing is, yes, we can submit a lot of those forms, but we want to make sure that we have accurate parent sign-off, that they've read the forms, they filled out the forms, and that we have it. There's an issue sometimes with passive consent, that we want to be careful that we have true sign-offs, because if anything happens and parents say, we never got the form, we didn't have access to it, we never signed off on it, we didn't know what we were signing off on, it was just a checkbox, we want to make sure we're covered with everything. But the goal would be to move as much as we can from the paper copies to the online, especially when you have 3 kids. You're filling out the same medical form in 3
Over
different...
and over.
And every
over
school is
and
different.
over and over again. So we talked about that today, and I have a note on March 5th, which is an actual date, for us to revisit it at our next leadership meeting for how we can transition things from a paper copy to an online and make sure we're all legally covered. But yes, we talked about that today.
And to that end, we did purchase an MBA plugin, which MBA is a partner with PowerSchool. They're not PowerSchool, but they partner and they create what they call plugins for PowerSchool to be able to customize it more. And one of the features we got this summer, which I'm very thankful for, is the report creator. So I'm in the process of creating the report cards and progress reports and transcripts, everything from scratch. But the nice feature is you can deliver it with that plugin electronically to the parent portal. And there's also a digital signature that you can request parents to check off, and then we'll see it on our end that the parent date and time that they checked it off, that they digitally signed it, that they saw it and got it. So it does have additional capabilities which we haven't explored yet, for like attendance letters, failure notices, things like all kinds of letters and create reports that we can create. And the other thing is it also automatically translates language. So if the student's home language is set to Spanish, if that's in PowerSchool, that their home native language is Spanish, then the messages that we send through the portal will translate automatically. So that's a nice feature too.
That include IEPs? Oh my God, that's awesome.
Amazing.
We're going to look.
We're still in the very early stages, and it's a lot of work just to create these templates. Again, so thank you to the secretaries who have helped me, and Jake and Scott, and it's ongoing, but we're building towards getting everything off paper.
Yes.
It's no
I ignore my
easy.
paper.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's no easy feat, but I would highly encourage, I think it should be a goal, right? We're supposed to be paperless, right? There's nothing, and I get for safety-wise, covering ourselves, totally get it, but to have to do the paperwork over and over and over, maybe that first year for someone coming into the district, right? They have to do it, but if you're the same person who's already filled it out and it's been verified, you can kind of figure out real quick. I mean, I
Emergency
encourage.
contacts have not changed, I promise.
Right, I mean, so, and maybe that's how we implement it, is that first year, the first touch of that student coming into the district, we do that paperwork. And if nothing else, then they get to go into the, I just highly encourage.
I would, again, I was in a couple of the buildings, and I saw them putting the packets together. We actually had PTO in, I think, Cindy's building coming in, and they were just going around a table, putting together 47 pieces of
I'm
paper.
well aware, I
Yeah.
did that.
So again, I'd love to move, for the environment, for
Yep.
sanity.
For
our
cost
staff,
savings.
For cost savings, for a whole slew of reasons.
It's
We
just, and I know it's baby steps, but the fact that we got everything up and off the ground and we're successful for the first week, thank you so much to you and your team, because Obviously, we are technology reliant nowadays. That's how we can connect. So I am just thrilled, so.
And we've just had our first FY26 discussion.
Awesome, even better. Anybody else? Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming and
Thank
welcome.
you, guys.
Greg? To roll, yeah.
It's almost like he has, names and a pencil, and he's like, oh, there's who should I get?
Well, good evening. It's been a busy summer. From the start, we had been working directly with the compliance component for the policy and procedure manual. We have basically a final draft done that was done in July. We are not going to be publicly offering it just yet because we're still working with Department of Ed around a corrective action plan, which we're going to talk about at another meeting in 2 weeks. So with that, I want to make sure our procedures that we have in place are approved by Department of Ed, and then we can start publicly offering our policy and procedure manual. But that was a pretty big lift over the summer, and I want to thank both Ms. Cardinal, the coordinator for the elementary school and the primary school, who really worked really hard, and Ms. Ramsdale, before she left, she worked hard on it as well. So I want to thank both of them. And also Ms. Lois, my assistant. She was every step of the way telling us, historic perspective on things and what was working in the past. So everyone did a wonderful job, so I want to thank them. In regards to professional development, 3 weeks ago, we kicked off the Champions of Co-Teaching. I talked a little bit about this in the previous meetings last school year, but what this is we had highly focused professional development for a small group of teachers. We had 6 in total, pairs of teachers that worked together, one in each building for elementary, middle school, and the high school. We're looking at expanding in the primary school later on. Their model's a little bit different than the other 3 schools. And we did highly focused professional development around strategies of co-teaching. We've worked for the first day a lot about relationship building, because you're going to be working with someone for 180 school days. You're naturally going to have a relationship. How do you use each other's strengths and interests to really develop some of those strategies? And then we got into the different components of co-teaching, the various strategies that can be used in data collection, and how to use those to really do informed heterogeneous groupings and so on and so forth. And then we gave them about a half a day to plan out 2 weeks to get them a good foundation, working with me, talking about different aspects of it, so they can start the school year with that. So the plan for this is to check in with them about twice a month, once kind of just walking into the classroom, seeing what's going on, observing some of the strategies, and then a focus group afterwards, kind of just having some feedback, what's working, what adjustments can be made, common planning time, being able to look at those lesson plans together. So we'll be doing that each month moving forward. I gave them a little breathing room, so give them a couple weeks to get settled, but I'm going to start in the next couple of weeks. 2 weeks ago, we brought in paraprofessionals and the ABAs for 2 days of voluntary training, where they did get paid their hourly wage, but some job-specific training. And I want to thank Dr. Vieira and Ms. Cardinal, because we collaborated together in developing some of the training. Dr. Vieira brought in a lot of resources that he had, and we have a pretty good professional development plan for onboarding paraprofessionals. We kind of used that as a soft opening, what worked, what was a good presentation with our existing staff. So now when staff come in and are hired in the middle of the year, they have a presentation that they can review and go over to help them on board. We also did some job-specific training. So for all the staff, Ms. Cardinal presented and did a wonderful job presenting what's the responsibilities of an ABA and a para, and just kind of outline that for them. I also provided part of safety care, the classroom management components, none of the restraints or anything like that, nothing that would require any kind of physical management, but more so how to be proactive instead of reactive. And that got a good response. We also did very specific jobs, so I took the inclusion paraprofessionals, and Ms. Cardinal and Ms. Fournier, our BCBA, took the ABAs and the one-to-one paras, and we did job-specific trainings. So Ms. Fournier, our BCBA, and Ms. Cardinal worked on behavior intervention plans, very specific, identified for one-to-ones, what is needed, languages to use, that sort of thing. I took our inclusion paras, and I did part of the co-teaching training, building relationships with your general ed teacher. What are the responsibilities of an inclusion teacher in that classroom? How to use their strengths and their interests. We found a lot of things that we didn't know about ourselves, and being able to identify certain strengths. So the feedback was really great. It seemed like all the pairs and ABAs at yesterday's negotiations, they thanked us for that. So I think it was a pretty good turnout. We had about 14, 15, but they wanted to expand that for everyone. So they really liked it. So we also did professional development on the second day of PD with all special education teachers and related service providers. We did this around our compliance component. We went over a cheat sheet of procedure things that need to happen and who's responsible, and also a flow chart. So who should be point people, liaisons for families, and then how the communication goes up the line to coordinators, building principals, and myself. So it's been a busy summer, lots of PD, but it's been really great and getting us a good foundation to start.
I'm wondering, is the flow chart available like online, just for even parents to look, who should I contact if I have questions?
So we actually talked about that at CPAC tonight. One of the components that I want to share with CPAC is a liaison list, and with that, with the flow chart. So over the course of this week and next week, the liaisons are going to reach out to all families just to introduce themselves. So that way parents know who could be a point of contact. And then with that flow chart, day-to-day kind of questions versus, programmatic questions that might come up to me.
Perfect.
I know I appreciate you talking about the ABA and para training, because that was one of the concerns of the families, is what training are the staff getting and things like that. I think it's really important that we highlight that so that, maybe a parent that doesn't feel comfortable watching school committee or doesn't know to watch school committee or whatever, somewhere put, kind of, these are the resources we use to train our staff so that families can feel comfortable and confident in the staff and just understand kind of like what they're doing so that there's that back and forth at home.
Definitely.
My memory may not be perfect, but I think we put it into 7 buckets.
Yes.
We did the staff, so even if you just highlighted the 7 buckets for people to know what we trained people on, and I sent it to Greg about 8 weeks ago, so my memory's not fresh as to what they are. But do you remember what some of them were? Or am I
Yeah.
putting you on the spot?
No, there's components to the behavior intervention plan. There's components to job duties, being able to understand Department of Ed guidelines around an IEP and services provided. So I don't remember all 7
Yeah.
buckets, but you're right about the 7 buckets. That was a good memory. But we do have those, and that was all part of that PowerPoint put together.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I just think that one of the other things I was excited to learn about at CPAC meeting is that Unified Sports is coming back.
So definitely emailed, and I can go further later on. So with our new athletic director, who is also our high school stripes post-grad teacher, so we're excited to bring her on board. I wanted to coordinate with her the hiring of our Unified Sports coaches. We do have a couple of people who are interested, and it is something that we are definitely focused on this year. So similarly to general education students with after-school sports, I want to, because they will have the contact with other ADs. and get us involved with some other unified sports teams.
Thank you. And just one other question I was just thinking of. So with the, obviously we understand the going from IPASS to Power School is a big lift, but how are we ensuring that the teachers have seen the IEPs and this, like the ABAs and stuff like that? How are we making sure that they have access to those things?
So all active IEPs were downloaded as PDFs, and we put it into Power School with a spreadsheet as to the student's name, SACID number, LACID number, that sort of thing. So it's uploaded. We are working with Power School. We have all paper copies right now. All liaisons have paper copies to make sure all staff who work with students are aware of accommodations and supports, to make sure from day one those are in there. The PDFs are in there for view. We're working with Power School right now because some people have access, some people don't. There was a question about a phantom school because there were some zeros added to one and not to another, and I'll let the tech department kind of explain that a little bit further later on. But we're working out a couple glitches with that. But some people do have access on Power School, some don't, but we always have the paper copy available. One thing Department of Ed says, the world can have no electricity anymore, but special ed continues, so you better have a paper copy backup to make sure of that.
There was just some discussion that from some of the families that the staff haven't had a chance to look at their IEP, so that's why if we could just make sure that all the building principals and you kind of make sure that all the staff have access, that would be fantastic. I get it. I get that it's a big change from the systems, but it's just really important.
So we also have a system of sign-offs for all staff that work with students that they've reviewed it, the IEP, or 504, because it's for both. They've been able to ask any questions they might have, and also they feel comfortable providing that support outlined in it, and then a sign-off. So there's 3 steps. If they do have questions or need further training, we'll be more than happy to provide it. But other than, we want to make sure the staff have seen it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Rosen.
Thank you so much.
All right. We will start with Mr. Ringett. You are correct. You will go last.
Save the best for last.
Oh, my goodness. You have no idea how difficult it was to go last year after all the cute kids from the primary school and the elementary school. And then
You can bring your cute high school kids. We don't discriminate. You love
they're
it.
older. They're older and
They're cute.
they're
A little spicier.
they're a little spicier.
Just saying.
They have they are definitely a great group, though. I will say that. So, first of all, thank you for having us tonight. We've had what I think is a great opening at the high school so far. We started off our first 2 days with the teachers, going through some professional development pieces and mandated trainings. We did a lot of Power School training. One of our focus points this year was the word patience. And really that surrounds technological patience. If we have a lot of change in technology and they're not comfortable with it, be patient with it. We'll figure out what's going on. We can go back and fix it if we have to.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that put a lot of staff members at ease, is that we do have the ability to go in and correct something if we absolutely have to. So our number one goal for the first few days was to make sure we could get attendance right. And through their efforts, through the teachers' efforts, through our new admin assistants' efforts, through, I will say, I have to give a lot of credit to Kathy Searle, our guidance department secretary. She has been really kind of a linchpin holding this all together through Power School. One of her goals this year was to make sure that she became like a Power School guru, because she was an IPASS guru. So, and she has really taken on that task, and she's helping a lot of people through it. So I can't thank her enough. A couple of other things we worked on with our staff members. We had a great speaker opening up the ceremonies. Alex Kajitani, if you ever get to see him, he's fantastic. He's a former math teacher. He's a math teacher, which is kind of like a kindred spirit to me. But at the same time, he knows how to captivate an audience. He knows the message that needs to be sent in order to reach all students. And that's really the goal, is to reach all students. So starting off with that, working through our mandated trainings, getting through Power School. I know the staff at the high school worked a little bit on a little bit of a data dive, and UDLs, we spent some time working on that, where the staff are broken up into groups. They were given a set of data, some student data that they didn't know what it was. They didn't know where it was going or anything like that. And they broke off into the groups, and they had to come back with 2 or 3 aha moments. And in doing so, they had to see if there was anything that might be able to get remedied. If it was, an aha on the negative side, how do we remedy? If it was an aha on the positive side, let's cheer for that as well. So, so we did a lot of that as well over the first couple of days. We came into school. Kids showed up. They were happy enough. Again, I get the older group, so their wake-up call was a little different for the first couple of days. Instead of it being 11 a.m. at home in their comfy beds with the air conditioning blasting or whatnot, and now it was 7 a.m. and they're, some of them came in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and excited, and some of them came in saying, okay, I just needed about 3.5 more hours of sleep, and I would have been great. But no, they came in. Attendance has been great first few days of school. The teachers have really welcomed them into their classes. As I get around, the first couple of days, I only saw one book being passed out, and that was for an AP class, so I let that one slide. But at the same time, the teachers were talking to the students, getting to know the students, and we're really looking forward to how this year kind of unfolds. Sorry, I just have one more thing to add. We did have a little snafu entering this school year, just for complete transparency, where we did have one of our beloved teachers in the computer science section. He did leave us to go to a school closer to home, and he's working at a middle school much closer to home, and we do miss him. We were unable to fill his position because we didn't have any qualified candidates apply. His computer science position, we did have several people apply, but in high school you need a teacher who can teach coding. They have to know how to code. They have to be able to teach coding. It's a very specific skill. So it's very difficult to find a teacher like that late in the summer. So we did not have any qualified candidates, which is unfortunate. So what we did dissolve his class, but we absorbed his classes as well. So luckily, we do have a partnership with VHS, and we were able to absorb some of it through VHS, and we were also able to absorb some of it with teachers within the building as well.
What's VHS? Oh, sorry.
Virtual high school. So we have a partnership with Virtual High School. It's a program where one of our teachers also teaches a class through Virtual High School. And what that does, it does offer us a bit of a discount with them, but it provides the students alone with just opportunities that they might not ever actually have. And that's...
We have 25 slots?
We have 50 slots for the year. Use them as we need.
A lot of smaller high schools use VHS because we don't have the opportunity to offer, for instance, French 4 or Calculus BC or some higher-end AP courses. So if a student has a particular interest in something and we can't offer it, the way VHS works is they partner with school districts across the U.S. So we have Al, for instance, teaching a VHS course. And what is he teaching?
He is teaching a music class. I want to call it music theory, but that's probably not being specific enough.
So everyone has access, so he'll fill his 25 slots. So we might have kids taking CAD 101 with a teacher from Sacramento, California, with students from all over the U.S. So it allows smaller districts the opportunity to offer some higher level classes for students.
for example, last year we had a student who was trying to become fluent enough in Mandarin because her goal was to study abroad and to study that far away abroad. And I think she actually has accomplished that goal after post-graduation, because she basically had her plane ticket at graduation saying, "See you later." And, you know, good for her that she was able to do that based off the fact that we have VHS.
So we still have the vacancy for the computer science,
So technically, we do have the vacancy for computer science, yes.
and we're actively still
It is.
trying to fill that?
We have kept it open, but at the same time, because we've been able to absolve the classes and absorb a lot of that, we've got it working within the school as it is right now.
The
So
likelihood
we
of
don't
finding
want
a
to,
computer science teacher at
Yeah.
this point of the school years,
Yeah,
it's,
It'll just have to be next year?
Correct.
Okay.
yep,
there's thousands of unfilled teaching positions in
Yep.
Massachusetts.
Yes.
630 something.
yes. So, yep, and we do have one unfilled para position
That
at
was
this
my
time.
question.
So, but with that, we're looking really good at the high school right now, and we're going to kind of see where everything goes.
When do clubs and stuff like that start?
So clubs loosely start up usually with their officers, as you met, you know, Emily and Megan earlier. So they kind of run a bit of student council. They're two of the officers in student council. So the officers kind of start up this week and next week. The week after, we do a clubs and activities fair to get those that are uninformed, hopefully involved with those clubs and activities.
Awesome.
Anybody else? How was Senior Sunrise?
Senior Sunrise was beautiful. I was able to get up on the roof, take a nice little picture of everybody. For the second year in a row, they seem to like the sunrise, and they seem to like the idea of a sunset at the end of the year.
That's a cute idea.
It's a nice way to open and close their last 160 some odd days, whatever it might be. And but no, the Senior Sunrise, they ate, they were fed, they decorated parking spots, they decorated their cars. It was really nice to see.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
No, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Mr. O'Brien.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good.
A busy summer at the middle school, most of which was working on the schedule. We do it by hand at the middle school. And I was dreaming about spreadsheets, as was Mrs. Sullivan. It looked great in practice of where everybody was going to be. Every teacher has a prep and a CPT, and we were able to book the teachers' preps at the same time, so all the math teachers have the prep at the same time, all the ELA teachers, then also we have the CPT. Boxed ourselves into a little bit of hole, trying to make sure everybody was in the right spot. Mrs. Sullivan did a tremendous job for that. We had some holes that we're fixing now, and holes I should have caught during the summer that I didn't. And I want to thank the coordinator, Kate Buck, for finding that. We had some out-of-state IEPs that were difficult to decipher and see what services they have, and some of them were expired. So let's put the student in where we think it's best, and I'd rather move a student up than out of the classroom. So we're fixing that schedule with the help of the special education teachers. It should be all squared away with by next week. We had a few parent requests to switch to related arts or their enrichment class. And luckily, some of them was very easy to do. Sometimes some were a little tougher, but we're squaring that away. We had a kickoff 2024 before the start of school that we had over 100 people there. Amazing. The staff was tasked with the back-to-school training. We're picking up Power School. We're leaving NWEA for STARS, and we're working with Panorama and getting the ISSP to work and using Panorama as a platform to jump to our student support team referral progress. So it was a lot there. but the staff is tremendous, rolled up their sleeves, let's get started, let's do this. Behavior-wise, best 3 days since start of school. No issues. I think the kids were a little forgetful on how to use a locker and a lock. So we were searching, Mrs. Martinson and myself were searching for apps where they could practice opening their locker right there. I think some were done on purpose, that they just couldn't get it done on time. But the staff was very patient and very excited for the start of the school year, throwing so much at them the same day. I'd like to thank the cafeteria staff that averted could be a tough situation to start the school year. And I wanted to thank Kathy Campbell for training that she did on the second day of school when we had a medical emergency the second day. That was very scary, and everybody on the medical emergency response team just did a tremendous job on where to be when they should be, and it was nice for them to be complimented by the assistant fire chief that it went smooth. So some of that necessary required training that you go through every year, you kind of, this time it was needed, and I'm glad we had it. So far, it's a lot of smiling faces, students being happy and relatively quiet, and teachers looking forward to the changes and are working hard. Very, very lucky.
What about staffing?
Just staffing, I have a second interview with a STEM candidate for a resignation that came in the first day of school. I talked to that candidate's principal today to make sure that if that person is taken, that we give that school enough time so they don't fall into the same trap. So we're going to work that out together. If this candidate goes through, make sure that school doesn't get jammed up. Looking for that. We're fully staffed for paras and ABAs right now. That's about it.
Any update on the CAF, and can we communicate that to parents?
It is completely, I could turn this over to superintendent, but Ms. Keegan.
You definitely can.
No, Amy Wells.
The quality test came back.
Courtney, you want to talk about Courtney? Yeah.
Yes. And again, I want to say, this was responded to immediately. The minute that we had any notification, I made a phone call right away to the insurance company, got a call right away that they were reaching out to the person I needed to speak to, who is in another town that I don't need to mention, but they were having a flood problem or something. And then within 45 minutes, they called me right back, within 45 minutes, they were down. And that was on the Friday. And Saturday, deployed, had people down the whole 8 hours. Monday, they came back. I mean, it just boom, 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 boom. Everything just went extremely well. And again, like Bob had said, as far as the food service director, the cafeteria staff, not only at the middle school, but other schools as well. I know the high school, their staff helped out as well. I mean, everybody just pulled together great with regard to feeding and all. Everything was cleaned up. They did a test. It went absolutely fine. And we did receive a report today, a very long report, but that everything was, in fact, if I remember the verbiage in it, it said it was clean, so clean as if it was brand new. So they did an excellent job, because we had to have an HVAC team come out. We had separate cleaning teams come out. You had the testing, the management of it. It really went, I couldn't be more pleased. I mean, it was costly, but extremely important. And I couldn't be more pleased. We could not have had things done more quickly, and everybody pulling together. Frankly, I've never seen anything like it, really, that it was that boom, 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 and even on the weekend, offering to come down immediately that next morning and work the full 8 hours. And custodial staff absolutely offered to come in, stay here for the full 8 hours. I mean, everybody just did a fabulous job.
And I believe Mr. O'Brien put in his email, when it happened, we contacted the local Board of Health. They put us in touch with the regional inspector for the town of Douglas and this region, and I had a conversation with her all weekend. She contacted the Department of Public Health Office of Air Quality Control, and the question was, can we open our schools? And through communication between the company that was here, information we have for them, they wouldn't have allowed us to open if it wasn't safe. So we had enough information and got the approval from all three boards to open up. I believe that was in the email, we talked about it,
Yeah.
or.
It should be in the
I know
newsletter.
lot's gone out, but, I mean, the report that we got's public information. I read some of it.
Yeah, we just
It's,
got it. Yeah.
it's dense, but happy to share it out with anyone who wants to. Hear it.
And on that note, I'd like to thank the custodians that we were pretty thinly staffed this summer, and they were sweating buckets every day to get that school clean. And some of the rooms, you're like, how do they get this done? They just did a heck of a job. So,
You had quite the opening.
trains, planes, and automobiles. It's going to happen. But we did open on time.
Yep.
And I just can't believe how well-behaved and happy the students seem, especially the 6th grade students. They look so cute. I can't believe the 8th grade students are 8th graders already. I'm like, you're killing me. And it's very smooth. Our largest grade, 8th grade, had some families move in from out of district, so that's going to be a tight grade to run this year. It's a numbers game. But the staff will pull through. We'll solve it.
How many do you have in 8th grade now? Roughly. Sorry.
Well, I know we were at about 29 or 30 per class, and we got 4 in, and we're trying to rearrange it to keep it down to about 27 per class. There just has to be enough open spaces to put them. Like one of the issues, we had a class where the student also wanted to have a couple of students band, and this was the only class was offered at the same time as band. So we had to get creative and move some things around, but it's such a puzzle. You move one piece, and then and maybe if you're a teacher in one grade, you don't see the repercussions it causes through the other grades. But I like the community, the parents, when they call, very polite, very thankful. Could you be able to do this? And it's just nice to be able to work. And you always want to help somebody out that's polite and thankful and go the extra mile for them.
Hopefully the next few weeks less eventful for you.
Every day is exciting.
It's an adventure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Haynes.
Excuse me. Hello.
Good evening.
I just have I have a prepared bit that I'd like to read, and but then I'll just open it up and can ask some questions. But I want to try to stay focused with the first part, but then I'll be happy to field questions. Okay. Excuse me. So I'll just say the Douglas Elementary School staff gathered briefly in our cafeteria following presentations by Dr. Vieira and Mr. Cagitani, feeling inspired to be back for the new school year. At this school-based kickoff, we introduced new staff, movement of current staff into new positions, and opened the floor to sharing any and all wonderful news from the summer break, weddings, engagements, babies, things like that. The vibe was positive and uplifting. The staff was then free to get to work preparing the classroom and collaborating as teams to prepare for the 343 students who would be walking through our school doors in less than 48 hours. Teachers then continued their Power School PD, and I want to thank Dom for being present there and very supportive, and the rest of the technology staff. I know that the teachers felt supported learning this new program. And the paras and ABAs participated in their own training, and day one then concluded with an ice cream social and valuable staff bonding time. And that ice cream social was courtesy of our PTO, but I stole the idea from Mr. Inget in the high school, so thanks for that. But it was wonderful, because as those of you who work in schools, or have worked in schools know, you see each other on that first day, very little, you chat, and then the next time you see them, there's either like 24 kids following them, or you're at the copiers going, and so just to have that time to check in, it's valuable. Day two started off with nuts and bolts, centered around our new DES Staff Shared Information and Resources page. This was introduced by Mrs. Sullivan to our school, and it's a useful one-stop shop for all of our important staff-related information. So it's just a nice tool for teachers to be able to access all kinds of school-related information. But one of the longest and easily the most important part of the day was centered around health and safety for both students and staff. Officer Brett and Officer Adam along with Douglas High School Vice Principal Desi Vega, presented Alice and other safety-related training. That said, I'd really like to thank the school, the Douglas Public Schools. I'd like to thank the town of Douglas as well, and the entire Douglas community for providing us with an additional school resource officer to keep our school safe. And just having that, we're fortunate at the elementary school, we happen to have a space right in the center of the school that we're able to make available to the officers, Officer Brett and Officer Adam, and Finn, of course. It's got a nice cool floor in that space off the library for Finn. But really with that, the presence, the SRO presence in the school has been amazing. And I feel like the staff feels incredibly safe and supported. And it's just really, it's really nice having them be part of our school's culture. Anyway, that said, Nurse Mel Brundage then provided additional health and safety information regarding our medical emergency response team, EpiPen training, and more. The staff was then given time to conduct their mandated training and continue collaborating in anticipation of the first day of school that ended up being a tremendous success. I had similar experiences that the high school and the middle school had. So that was really our lead up to the school year, and we had a very, overall we had a very, I think, successful start to the new year. It seemed to go smooth. There were some staffing situations that came up. Just prior to the opening of school, we did have all of our staffing filled, but we had some 11th hour losses of staff moving on to new positions, people that were hired, and I don't know if you're aware, but there's a hiring crisis throughout the state. So right now, we are in the midst of hiring a second grade teacher and a special education teacher, and we're also in the midst of hiring an ABA and a para. So that's something that we've been focused on, but I'm feeling really good where we are now in terms of hiring these individuals. And so in terms of staffing, that's been sort of the biggest challenge, but fortunately we've had some subs and other people to support us to be able to fill those roles, but we're in a better place than we were a few days ago, and so, but that's where we are in terms of, that was our biggest challenge. Otherwise, well, one thing that was really interesting that I can't get out of my mind is that when one of our teachers left, again, just had a new opportunity, and we found out at the 11th hour that this person, that he wasn't going to be coming back. And what happened, it was really interesting. I went upstairs and to go to the space, and a bunch of our staff members just started putting the room together. And the colleagues were, they were making extra copies of what they were going to do with their kids. And this was just something that this group of teachers and paras and ABAs at our school just did spontaneously, just because they knew that the kids were coming. And they just did it. And the room looked perfect. And it was one of those moments, and it might sound a little cheesy, but it was very touching, just to see everybody step up like that, because they knew kids were coming the next day. And then we were able to have Ms. Spiagioni, who is a legend in our school and everyone loves, was willing to step in and support that class, those new students coming in for their first day of school, and as we worked to fill that position. But it was, like I said, one of those things that seemed, oh, what are we going to do? And then all of a sudden it was like, wait, if I work with people like this, we'll get through this. And it was a really cool experience. So, but that's where we are now. But
if I could just add, I don't know if people saw the report out of WBZ News out of Boston about 2 weeks ago. There was 6,000 vacancies in the Commonwealth 2 weeks ago. And just for perspective, there are 351 school districts. Now, again, I know some are bigger than the others, but if you do the math, that's huge. Ken actually had a situation where he had hired someone, spoke to that person, I think the day or two before new teacher orientation, and they didn't come. So we thought we had a position filled, had a packet, had everything set up, nameplates, tags, and confirmation they were coming, and then just a no-show, no call. So it's difficult.
Are there questions?
I just want to tell you, it was really nice to hear from a lot of the staff your My Favorite Teacher activity, and how much they loved reflecting on that, and how much that meant for a lot of our staff.
Oh, Thank you. We're not done with that. There's a follow-up to that, but it was a neat experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and for those of you that we just had the teachers reflect on their favorite teacher, and then we had them break out into groups and talk about their favorite teacher and come up with words that describe their favorite teacher and why, and then we had them, them share, and we discussed it, and Mrs. Sullivan and I are planning on a follow-up to this, but it was fun. It was nice.
I think they all a lot of them have expressed they liked reflecting on what mattered in their childhood and starting the school year like that.
Did all grades move to the cohorts for specials?
Yes.
That's across all grades. Just, I don't really care, I'm just curious. Why was that decision made to split the kids up?
So we have 4 grades, 4 classes typically per grade, and we have 5 specials.
Oh, got it, okay.
So what we thought, the beauty of that, first of all, is you have these smaller groups going to the specials, but it just created an opportunity really to have there be more kids getting to know more kids within their cohort, and we thought just from a social perspective, it would be beneficial. But yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Sosha.
All right. Well, my kids are the cutest, I have to tell you.
You waited 45 minutes to say that.
Right.
You didn't even
Hands
sit down.
They are the cutest, getting off the bus with their new backpacks and, the hair ribbons, and the boys with, the new sneakers and everything. They are just adorable. So today is the first day that we welcome everyone back. So we do like this rolling admission at the primary, where first grade came back last week. Preschool started yesterday and today, and kindergarten today. So first time. So our numbers, we have a total of 224 students. In grade 1, we have 79, which makes it 19 to 20 per class. There are 4 sections. Kindergarten, we have 87 students, 17 to 18 per class, 5 classes, which is up from last year. We had 14 to 15 last year in a class. And preschool, we have 58 students. And the max on our 4-year-old classes is 14 students. And we are maxed out. We have a waiting list in preschool. So we're full up and full of energy. So today had to have been the smoothest opening that we probably have ever had. I had the fewest parent tears, the fewest kid tears. Really, we had a preschooler, mom is crying, she's like, give me a hug, and they're like, yep, see ya. And they just marched right in the door. They just were ready to go, and I think it's because for every grade, grade 1 had supply drop-off the day before they started. They got to see their room, they got to see their name tag, their teacher was there. So that helps. Kindergarten, the same thing. Orientation was the day before. They spent time in the classroom, met the teacher, saw some of the friends that they would have. Preschool, same thing. We bring them in the day before. So it just lessens that anxiety for the parents and for the kids. So we're going to keep that going because it's working. The other thing that works is they come into a soft start. So they're coming in and they have choices. You can go to this table with a bucket and you can build something. You can go over here and you can color. You can make a headband that says the first day of school. So the kids have choices and they love it. So it gets them in and it gets their mind off, if they're missing mom, and it works for us. Parents commented, I can't even tell you how many times in the orientations they commented on how clean our school was. So I have to say kudos to our custodian, Mr. Andy, for doing such a good job, because we know it's the oldest building. Sometimes it's the hardest to keep clean, and the floors are spotless. They're shining, and parents really noticed it. So it was nice to hear that they did notice. The first 2 days of school, as you heard, we had some PD. We had the speaker, Alex Kajitani. He was the California Teacher of the Year. I came across him when I was participating in a national ST math conference. And so then we connected. He sent us both books that he wrote, Owning It. So he's just a great person. People have connected now with him. They're on Facebook with him. He's just a good person. He's very inspirational, and he just wants people to lead with passion. That's his message, have passion about what you're doing. We also did power school training, panorama training. The assistant fire chief came and did stop the bleed with us and choking. So that's a big one that we need to have in our cafeteria with all of the kids. Nurse did EpiPen training. We pointed out, where are the AEDs in the building and things like that. I took the new staff around, where are all the exits? Because you'd be surprised, there's so many exit doors in my building, you'd never know that they were there. So that was another thing. And of course, Officer Brett and Desi Vega did the Alice review with all of us. My update for staffing would be that I'm still looking for a flex room para, and that was an additional position. So right now, we have a sub that we've taken in a couple days. Whenever I can get a sub, we put that sub in there, so we have that extra person to accommodate everything. I also need a Title I para. That was a last minute where my para got a teaching job. Good for her, in Worcester, so we lost her like the day before. She was also going to be my long-term sub for grade 1 maternity, so now I'm looking for a long-term sub for that grade 1. So we are off to a great start. We're all excited. Everyone's smiling in my building. They're all happy, which is nice. Everybody's happy. So the kids are happy, teachers are happy. What more could we ask for, right? Any questions?
That's just always wonderful to hear, like, the first impressions, right, as you come into our school district, right? And hearing that, what the parents are saying, because it is showing its age in some places, right? But the fact that the parents recognize the condition of the building and how well the custodial staff is, so kudos to them, please.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Right. So again, thank you to everyone that made it such a smooth start, from bus drivers, cafeteria workers, coordinating, office staff, everyone. So it was a great start. Again, not without some bumps in the road, but that's to be expected when you're doing such a massive operation. Next on the agenda is an update and a discussion before I turn it over to Cordy on fee waiver procedures update. And this is something that's a sensitive topic, and I just want to make sure we're completely transparent with the committee and the community on it, because it goes to how we're going to ask people to supply information for waivers. And when you talk about waivers, and you're talking about people's finances and home situation, it's a very, very, very personal and sensitive thing. So I want to make sure we're transparent about it, that we're upfront and honest about it, and people know the why behind it and why we're doing it and why we're changing it. The big thing is we always used to use the free and reduced lunch forms for how we would check to see if people were able to get a waiver or not a waiver. The formula has been changed, and we can no longer use that for the high school. So the high school has to use a new and different process. So part of the stumbling block was, do we do one process for K-8 and a completely separate process for the high school, or do we do the same process K-8, and that's what we're going to do. So I'll turn it over to Cordy. You should have some information in your packets, or are we handing it out now? Okay, I'll hand it out while you start. Or you can just pass it down. I'll turn it over to Cordy to go over a little bit of the history behind free and reduced lunch forms and what we're transitioning to.
So what I'm actually handing out is what I found on the DESE website. It's a form that, because this came up, and I'm sorry, I don't recall what I stated a couple weeks ago, so I might just be repeating, but which is fine. So we got notification of just the high school being eligible for the community eligibility provision. And at one point, we thought all 4 schools were going to be, but I guess there was some kind of an error in the state, and just the date or whatever it was, doesn't matter, because in the end, it was only the high school and not the other 3 schools. We found out shortly before the school opened. And to be honest with you, when it initially came up, with all that I was dealing with, as far as the waiver process, that wasn't even something on my mind. But a whole bunch of emails came through MASBO, my listserv, Mass Association of School Business Officials. So a lot of school districts across the state were having the same exact issue, and they were all saying, what are you doing, what are you doing, what are you doing? Because we all used to use the free and reduced application. So luckily, several of them came back, and highlighted this form, so I did look into it. I went on the DESE website and said, well, this is something that we could definitely look into. And they do have they had frequently asked questions too, that they answered as well. And they did say that you absolutely could use this form, even though DESE had prepared it for the Student Opportunity Act, that you could use it for waivers for athletic fees and other fees. So I think that's why a lot of districts were going in that route. So just kind of highlight a little bit more of what Dr. Vera was talking about, just kind of backpedal a little bit. So as you were aware for many years, we did use the free and reduced application because parents would send them in. And of course, remember, before free lunch, we used to get loads of them. We get far less now because of the free and reduced lunch. So that's another issue as well, to be honest with you. So we would use that, and we had to have, by law, USDA regulations, a sharing of information form that parents would have to fill out, and then the waiver form, and then if they filled out the sharing of information, that would allow the food service director to share that information for that waiver process. Another thing that I want to kind of enumerate is with the free and reduced lunch process and the USDA regulations. When that form is completed by the parents, it came into the food service director, and she would review it and sign off. Then I, as a business manager with a filing with the state, I'm the confirmer, was a confirmer. So I would confirm the information, which means I would do the calculations based on their chart and all of that, and I would sign off as confirmed. And under USDA regulations, there's a further process, too, that was called verification process. There's a signature on all those forms. I don't know if you've ever recall seeing it. The third signature was verification. And USDA regulations does require a certain number, based on a very strict calculation, of the free and reduced lunch applications to be verified. And that verification process was outlined by the federal government as well. And it did require that you send in either pay stubs and other things to delineate to verify what was on the form. So I just wanted to make sure I did point that out. It was a small number, small percentage, based on what the USDA regulations were. And I did have the opportunity to look at this form that I passed out to you more today. And I did notice that as far as the supporting documentation requirements, they're exactly the same as what's required when you have verification for the school lunch program. And it's also the same documents that some school districts that have their own process. There are school districts that have a waiver form and a process where they've been requiring this for many years. It's the same documentation. The other thing that I noticed, too, is as far as on the very first page after the cover letter page, the income ranges, it's actually the same exact income ranges. They're on the free and reduced form for those applications, but the reduced column. These line up precisely with that as well. So I think they kind of used some of the information. Well, they didn't kind of. I can tell they used some of the, for probably obvious kind of common sense reasons, I guess, some of the figures and process that is used by the USDA for the school lunch process. But, Dr. Vieri and I did discuss it. It does become very cumbersome. We were thinking high school, but then when you think more broadly, and he brought it to my attention, and I wasn't there yet. My brain wasn't there yet. But it's like if somebody has 4 children, and they have one in each building, say, you've got one process for 3 of the buildings and one in another building, and that doesn't make sense either. So that's why we're recommending to go with this process here. And what we would do, though, is obviously we'd have to send, because it's something very, very different for parents, send out a detailed, informational sheet, for lack of a better word, letter or whatever, to explain it, in detail. And also explain the process that where free and reduced applications went to the food service director, that's where they had to go for obvious reasons. It's safety of information and all that. For this particular process, because it doesn't have to do with the school lunch program, and we do have free lunches now, these would come directly to my office. So they would be kept, in a locked cabinet, any that come to us be reviewed by me, verified, signed off, and things of that nature. And certainly, if anybody had any questions, they could certainly reach out and ask as well. But as far as the documentation requirements, it's standard requirements, really, for any kind of a process like this. And they do have also, they call it a community contact I'm not really crazy about the verbiage because it kind of throws you off. It doesn't.
confusing.
Yeah, it really is. They use verbiage that doesn't seem to match what it is. But there is a process too if you are having difficulty getting things as well. But it's all about the verification of income. So I do want to say that from what Raquel, our prior food service director, when she was serving as interim, she did say that they did change and update the formula where it would make more schools throughout the state, probably the United States, the USDA, and I don't know how much of it, to be honest with you, I don't have full knowledge of that area, how much of it is state versus maybe federal, but that more and more did become eligible, and I'm thinking that over the next few years, more of our schools here in Douglas may become eligible as well. I'm saying may. So again, that's another reason why if we keep, then we would have to keep going like a yo-yo back and forth. So I thought of that. That's something I didn't think about until yesterday or today. I thought, oh my goodness, that's right too. Some could become more eligible. We may as well do something now for all four schools and then go from there. A lot of changes these days. There's always changes. They happen fast too. This happened very quickly.
I'm very sensitive to all this, and I can understand, and I just, again,
Yeah.
so everyone knows, and again, to be fully transparent, and we'll articulate this when we send the information out,
Yes.
is when we did the free and reduced lunch, it was only a very, very small percentage of people who applied, who qualified, who had to submit documentation to verify what their income was. Under this new process, if you apply, you have to submit documentation. And that's a pretty big shift. And I just want to make sure we're upfront and transparent with that. And it's just always a sensitive thing, but we want to be able to make sure that our families, we talked today about it. This goes for AP testing, this goes for people who need waivers for SATs, for PSATs, for field trips, for athletics, for field trips. So there are a bunch of things that this impacts across our buildings. And, we gave the example of a family who might have a middle school student who runs cross-country and qualifies under the free and reduced lunch thing, but then they have a student athlete at the high school who might play basketball in the winter season, and now they're saying, hey, how come for my younger child, I didn't have to submit documentation, and now for my older child, I have to submit documentation. So we thought just standardizing it across the district, especially as we go to, you have 3 kids in 3 different buildings, you're not submitting 3 different forms, and why are you asking for one grade before another grade, why are you asking for sports? So we just thought standardizing it would be thing. And again, with the sensitivity of the information, we want to make sure it's not going to a building principal, then an inter-office
No,
mail,
come directly
then
to
here.
the business
It's going to go
office
directly
only.
to Courtney's office.
make that
She'll
very
keep it,
clear,
I think by
yeah.
law, we have to maintain it for 3 years and then shred it.
If it's 5 years, because it's federal, right? USD,
Well, this isn't, but that would be free and reduced. We're not talking about that.
But it's federal, it's USDA, it's 5 years.
But this is not.
Oh, no, this
USDA.
isn't that. Yeah, this has nothing to do with that, yeah. But I do want to remind everyone too, though, that so many people don't fill them out because we have free lunch too. That's the other problem. I'm talking about the free and reduced lunch application. So that's another reason, just to have a process across, because we're not getting anywhere near the numbers that we used to.
We'll plug that next
Yeah.
week.
So, I mean,
Yeah, because we have free lunch.
so
That's why, yeah.
we're gonna send this out in a packet, and it's gonna say, return to Courtney. How is that gonna come in? Are they mailing it in? Are we supplying the stamp for it to be mailed back in?
So there's a solution.
Go ahead.
So I don't know if this is possible.
Follow the solution, go ahead.
I think so, but it's more work for you. So couldn't this be put into Power School in some way? Because I'm telling you, people will press the button. They'll say, oh, like, if you had a
To
certain.
verify.
Yeah, but that's not hard to do.
You
Pay
can
your
upload it.
taxes in an app.
You
Can
can
you
upload
upload
your,
documentation into Power School?
you can upload
Hate to
your
put you on the
pay
spot.
stub into anything. Right. Yeah.
Can you
It
have
would have-
a Privacy Information Act, privacy information in Power School? Did we buy that to encrypt it, basically, to make sure, right? Because that's the key to everything. That's what I'm concerned about is,
Yeah, I don't want to.
so it has to be encrypted, right?
I imagine it already is, because it has sensitive information like IEPs and probably some health information. So you've got HIPAA and all the things, so.
I do think it can be done, the short answer is yes.
I mean, I'm not talking about like tomorrow, but like maybe next year, or like.
You're saying next week.
Yesterday.
Process improvements, see?
But with the idea that going forward with hopefully all the forms or majority of the forms, when people are doing their packets at the beginning of the year, then they're like, okay, tab, fee waiver, whatever you want to call it, and then it explains what it is. People are sitting there cooking dinner, a cigarette, whatever they do, having a drink, or going for a walk. I'm trying to get something healthy.
Took a walk.
As they're filling out their form.
People are having a good night. Let's go hang out with, all while walking. But they're looking at their phone, and there's whatever. It's just easy to do. And I know that all of my information is right there, versus this, if I have to go print out pay stubs
Yeah.
or print out verification when it's already on my phone, it's so much easier because everything's done electronically.
I think we can look into that. I don't know if we'll
You
be
even
able.
have a printer.
Yeah. The,
As we learned quickly with Power School, that a lot of those things fall under customization.
Right,
With
that's-
that comes additional cost.
Right, well, that's what I'm asking the question is,
But it's definitely something we can look into, because I know from working in other districts using other SIS systems that we did a whole online registration for parents.
Right.
We rolled it out, and we do it at Kingfield, and the parents upload everything, all documents that are needed for the entire.
So much
registration
easier.
Into that, and it gets verified that way.
definitely,
love the
definitely going
upload.
forward, it would be
So
a
I'm
great
sure
thing.
Power School can do it.
But I don't know if we can turn around for sport ways. We could add something that if people want to drop it off, that's.
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
just trying
we
to
could
think
do
of
that,
like,
yeah.
how do we make sure we are controlling their information, right?
They're
That-
very
that's-
private.
It's
Very
that-
private.
And
Yeah.
so, if I'm asking them to put it in the mail, and I'm not putting a stamp on it, right? Again, I want to be clear, I do not want to be on the Boston Globe because we did not protect someone's information, right? That's my fear. And so, what is the process of how we implement this? Because if we don't do it correctly, this could go horribly wrong.
So again, the thought was, again, I know we've bantered around, would be to someone mail in the information to Courtney's office. Courtney receives the information. Courtney verifies the information herself. We can add an extra layer to let the parent know that we've contacted them, we've received their information, and it's stored, and it's put away. I know your question is going to be, what happens if it gets lost in the mail?
Parents are going to throw it in the kid's backpack.
I agree.
I'm
'Cause we
just
throw
telling
everything
you,
else in
they're
their
going
backpack.
to say, I'm not mailing it. You're going to school, here you go.
I would rather pay the stamp for each family and have it protected and going to the right person than.
I mean, that's just Heather's Moran viewpoint on, like, I work for the federal government, it's
So
publicly
just be-
known.
So walk me through, like, I get self-addressed stamps and how that would, but how would we push that out to families?
You'd go home with all the packets. So every family in the district would get a prepaid envelope.
And if they don't return it, that's on, the onus is on the principals.
No, we don't get that many waivers.
No, we don't.
We get,
And we do it, open house is a wonderful opportunity for those that actually show up. I know it's harder at the, probably junior and high school, it's probably, well, middle and high school is probably, not all parents show up, right? But primary and elementary, vast majority do.
Cheaper to do Power School.
I don't disagree, but if we're not there yet, right? So, like I said, that's my worry, is if we don't implement this correctly, this could go horribly wrong, real quick. Parents can get very upset because their sensitive information has not been.
A stamp's 45 cents a stamp, I forget what they are.
God, what year are you in?
But couldn't you just?
Sorry.
I don't even know
Couldn't you
how
just
much
like
a
put
stamp is.
If I can buy the books, why just pay?
How much is a
What are
stamp?
stamps?
50? No, what?
It's up there. I mean,
I
it's.
thought it was like 55.
Can't you put it in an envelope and weigh it and know how much it'll cost you?
Well, there's first-class envelopes, and those are
But then
all
they
like,
have to do the documentation, depending on what their documentation they're
Right.
using, right?
Yeah,
So, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, 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 yeah.
I just want to make sure, like I said,
We have,
I think 68, 69 cents.
I just want to make sure we implement it correctly.
The cost of what it would be to get the prepaid envelopes versus what it would be for Power School.
Roughly $900. If they're at 70 cents, it would roughly be $900 to
So
send.
I
them.
just-
73.
You're 73? Where am I at?
I don't.
It just
So
went up.
disturbing. I didn't buy enough of those forever stamps.
$75, yeah. Again, we can find a way to make it available to
Are-
families so we can control how that information's getting sent to us.
Are taxpayers going to be upset when they get a packet home that we paid for a stamp and their money went towards something that won't be used by a number of
The
households?
worst thing is
They'll
being
be
on
more than
Boston.
upset if somebody's suing us because we let their pay stubs
Yeah.
float around the
I agree. I'm just thinking of like, okay, if you're a parent who gets this home and is like, what is Douglas school system spending my money on?
There might be a bulk mail rate as well.
That's what I was thinking. Like, can we go to the post office and ask
Let
for
let us
advice?
go, let us
It's
go.
like, what is the realm of possibilities? How quickly can we put it? Is there the option for Power School? I mean, again, I'm not trying to, but I just know this for me, it's sensitive information. We should be safeguarding this to the highest.
Agree, which is why I led the way, I led with this, because this is sensitive on many, many, many levels. Let us look at the bulk rate, and let us look to see, and your point's well made, you know, as a taxpayer, it'd roughly be about $1,000, and if we're only doing 15 waivers
Yeah.
a year.
you don't do that many. You
know,
you have to be within this.
Yeah, if we're only doing 15
Eligibility,
waivers a year,
It's a
we'll
lot
have to do that, but again, I don't know how many waivers we do a year, but you'd have to qualify for it, so we'd probably be sending out about 800 envelopes that may not do it, but open house is a good way, having parents come in and pick it up or drop it off.
Adjustment councils kind of have an idea.
You don't want to
I
assume.
don't
You
want to
wanna
assume either.
but-
You don't want to, yeah, because it,
Could we
yeah.
do, like,
Right.
we do our phone calls, like, hey, just to let you know, this is out there, it's available, have your, you know, to get to the middle school and the high school, right? But I know that some of the kids are very sensitive, like, I don't want to go pick that up.
Or the other thing we could do is we could just do a Google form and send out and say, you know, here's a new process, if you'd like a self-addressed stamped envelope.
Yeah, I'm thinking something like that.
Available to you.
To look at the
Again, I
eligibility
just-
thing, yeah, to look at the eligibility, that's what
It's
I was trying to think
brainstorming, figuring it out,
of.
but
Yeah,
If
Yeah.
we send something out to families and do it over multiple pieces, and again, if a family needs the waiver,
They
again,
don't-
we could
yeah.
do it ahead of time, but if someone's getting ready to play, let's say, basketball,
Yeah.
and they're like,
Yeah.
we can't afford it, we can say, here's the waiver process,
Yeah.
please go see. So some of it we can get ahead of time, but a lot of it is also time-specific, because a parent may not be thinking about AP tests today.
nope. They haven't even gotten into.
They haven't
some-
even got,
that's
they only
so
got one,
shocked.
we only handed out one book already for that. So it might be, as time run, people might be calling the offices, and then we can supply it to them,
I
but
think even advertising that there is a waiver process if you need to utilize it.
That's the biggest thing, is getting it out, getting something out ASAP, yeah, absolutely.
So can we back
yeah.
up to that step? That was actually my question, is way before you have to send this out.
Yeah.
Is getting parents information.
Right.
Exactly what is covered. Like an AP exam, the SATs, I think you mentioned. There's so many things that I think this potentially applies to. How is that information being distributed? And then secondarily, if a family qualified, where is the information available for who they go to get it applied? Do they go to their coach? Do they go to the athletic director? And still being sensitive to a high school student not having to go to their coach and saying, hey, I qualify.
Rob, do you want to talk about how the process has always been handled? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's where most of it is, yeah.
Hello again. Historically, with most high schools that I've noticed, is that the free and reduced lunch form was used to reduce fees for AP exams, SAT exams, PSAT exams, athletics, things of that nature. Through the free and reduced lunch form that was filled out by parents at home, we would then recover that, we would send it forward to food services and to the business manager, and the determination would be made whether the fees would be reduced or in some cases eliminated altogether. Without that, we don't have a way to sit there and say, who do we charge the full fee to? Who do we not charge a full fee to? And ultimately, that doesn't.
I think the question was, how does, when a kid, how does a parent communicate with the school that they need a waiver for free and reduced, for athletic waiver or for an AP test?
The free and reduced lunch form was the way.
But how do they communicate
So
that they need?
Every
I
kid got
email
it.
you and say, hey, I have this,
Every
you let
st-
the coach know.
Every student got a form.
Okay.
In their opening day packets.
Right.
And those, historically, so not. So historically, it would be in the opening day packets, and it would come in and be, and not every parent would submit one because they wouldn't think that they would need one. And then we would take those forms and forward them along to the appropriate parties.
So my question is, so let's pretend it's me, and I know, I qualified, I heard from food services, hey, you qualified for this waiver. So I know that I need to let somebody know I qualified for a waiver. Who would I let know? Historically, would I say, Coach Sosha, I qualify for a waiver for cheer, because I know you did it years and years ago. But, how would they say to the principal, hey, that's Mrs. Brooks, can you let Coach Sosha know that we have a waiver? How would they do that?
So it comes through the principal,
Okay.
not the coach.
Okay.
The coach has no idea as to what each kid would pay.
Parent would email you, and you would know who's on the list.
The forms would come through me to start, because it comes through the main office ultimately, and then it would be pushed forward, yes.
Push, so my question is.
Pushed up the chain.
So I signed up
then-
for cheer.
Yes.
So do I have to email you and say, hey, I signed up for cheer, can you make sure the cheer coach knows I'm only paying half the fee? What do they do?
The coach doesn't need to know it all.
There's a lot of confusion. I don't think, Bob, you haven't answered the question.
So there is a form that I created a while back. There's two forms. There is a waiver request form and a sharing of information form. The free and reduced lunch application is afterward. That's a food service thing. It has nothing to do with this yet. But if someone does reach out to either the principal and maybe possibly the athletic director too, and would reach out to the principal, they would provide them with the waiver form to complete and the sharing of information form, because we are not ever allowed to look at anything or have anything to do with those forms unless the parent fills out the sharing of information form. So when we got that, it would go to the food service director, she would verify and complete it, and then it would go to them so that they would know whether they're, there's no waiver or reduced or free based on that, coming from the food service director.
So if I'm a
After
club director, let's get out of even athletics, because at least you have the athletic director. If I'm just doing a club as a
Field
teacher,
trip, yeah.
right,
For a
or a
field
field
trip,
trip, yeah.
So let's do AP,
go
just to
to-
make it easy.
go to the
You're a parent, your child's taking an AP exam. You think you can't afford it, you want to see if you qualify for a waiver. You would fill out the waiver request form. You would fill out the Sharing of Information Act form, or whatever, that form. It would go to the food service director. She would verify whether or not you've qualified or not qualified. In this instance, it would go, under the new system, it would go to Courtney. She would verify, and then she would let you know and the principal know that child X qualifies for free AP testing.
'Cause you
Okay, so
want-
now every time you verify someone, you're gonna have to inform every principal of who qualified, so that as these things get brought, when the club director comes to you.
Yeah.
See, that's what I don't understand. The club director's not gonna know
The
to
club-
go
it's
to.
Yeah, we
not
want
for
as
clubs.
few Yeah, we want to, and again, you remember, because this is very sensitive information, it's few people, so it would be the principal and athletic director, the food service director, only under that process before. The fewer people, because it really isn't, you know, it doesn't need to get, it wouldn't get down to coaches, it wouldn't get down to advisors or anything like that.
But to your point, if I'm running the 8th grade field trip is going out in September 26th, so.
Fees go
Principals.
into him, go to the principal's office.
Principals.
They collect
Okay.
up everything, it
Right.
goes to the principal's office, right?
Yeah, because
Got
they're in
it.
charge of their building and all
So
processes.
they're
and-
gonna annotate that they don't need to provide a check, right?
Got it, okay.
Right.
That's
make
exactly,
sense?
Yeah.
yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I was asking.
We don't want too many people knowing.
No, I definitely don't. I just
No.
want families to know.
Right.
Okay, I qualified, now what do I?
Again,
Oh, and they would notify, like the high school would notify that parent.
No.
No, it's a pride thing, right?
And again, people who've applied for waivers have always applied for waivers. It's just somewhat changing the process from going from filling out the food, the free and reduced lunch application, and going through the process like they typically have. Now we're just asking them to provide documentation because we don't have the ability to do it at the high school anymore, which is where the majority of our waivers come from, the high school.
And because we can't use the free reduced application process, no need to bother the food service director with it, so it wouldn't go to her, it will come to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
again, I just want to thank the committee. You know, sometimes these conversations get messy, but sometimes you have to get a little messy to
Get there.
to get to the end. It's like, again, it's like
Yep.
sometimes I cook on a Saturday night, you get 7 or 8 pots, you know, and the kitchen's a bit of a mess, but everything comes out right at the end. And again,
Yep.
this is really, like I started, I'll say it again, very, very sensitive information. And it's sensitive to people, and people who are struggling financially. You know, it's tough a lot of times for them to step up and say, hey, we need help. And that's really difficult. And
You do it to school.
for decades or for however long, you submit that free and reduced lunch form, and it goes, and then very few people ever hear a follow-up. Now we're asking for that additional information, and that's sensitive to people. Or to ask people to go out and say, hey, look, you may not be able to provide this, but you can get this form filled out by person X for it. You know, I just want to make sure we handle that carefully and tactfully with people, because I want to be protective and respectful of people's personal situations. But, you know, also, we're also holding on to sensitive information, which I'd rather not have to do it, but unfortunately, this is where we're at in terms of getting that information.
I just wonder how many people will just not do it because the process is so, no matter what you, like, this is a cumbersome process, right? And I'm just worried about, obviously, I know there's not a whole lot we can do, but I'm worried about the kids whose families will not access something because this process is so cumbersome.
And again, I know, again, principals know people, and again, and know their kids, and know their families. Again, there's a historical trend of who's applied for things
Yeah.
over the past few years, and we're not a high school of 2,700 people where it's tough to know. You know, between Jill and Kristen and Lindsay Ryan, they know who our kiddos are. Desi and Rob know as well. So if we ever have to reach out to families for it, we could do that too. And then walk them through the process and help them if they want
And they
that
would
help.
do the same thing they've always done. You know, like, even with the prior process, you know, we didn't get involved, because the principals, you know, in this, they're the ones working with the parents and the students. You know, I mean, I know the food service department does as well. I'm not trying, you know, but you know what I'm saying. So, I mean, it would be the same. I don't see that changing at all. I mean, they know their families, they know their students. You know, and again, it's always been sensitive. It has always been sensitive, but they do that every day, all day long, and
And we'll get
working
you an
with their
update on it
families,
too
so,
as well.
yeah.
And I appreciate the dialogue, I appreciate
Yeah.
the back and forth, the conversation.
Not an easy thing. I
No,
wish it
it's
didn't.
not.
I wish it didn't, but, you know, this
Thanks.
is what it is. Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it for tonight for me.
Thank you. Over to the school committee and subcommittee, the accounts payable report, which I don't think we have
Don't
anything.
think we
Good,
do.
So moving.
Nope.
Over to the consent agenda, if we could review the August 21st, 2024 meeting minutes.
Jeez, I didn't
If nobody has any issue, I'd be looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion to approve the August 21st, 2024 school committee meeting minutes.
Motion made by Julia, seconded by?
Meg?
Second by Meg. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Good to go, thank you.
Are we, from this agenda, are we going back tonight to, I don't think I see it listed here.
After school?
Yes.
No, we're going to do it in the next meeting. We're still
Okay.
getting more information for you. We didn't forget, we just need to give
Yeah,
them.
we need to-
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Douglas High School out-of-state athletics.
I feel like a white snake sitting right now. Here I go again. Okay, so again, thank you for having me up here. This is a kind of like a annual thing that we do request here at the high school due to our proximity to both Connecticut and Rhode Island. So we do see an increase of athletic contests happening over our borders in both those states. We have golf outings across state lines. We have track and field and cross-country races that occur. In Rhode Island especially, they have a very nice weekend meet called the Ocean State meet, and they do it in cross-country, and they do it indoor track and field and outdoor track and field. So these are things that the students would like to continue to participate in as well as the coaches. We've been able to do this in the past, so to be honest, I'd like to avoid running into any sticky situations throughout any of our seasons where we don't have this approved if possible. And the events are covered through the athletic budget for transportation, and they are kind of readily available for us to use at this time. So if the school committee is in agreement, the following motion is recommended for approval. Move to approve permission for the Douglas High School Athletics Program at Douglas High School to participate in regularly scheduled matches and games held out of state for the 24-25 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by Beth. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thank you so much. Next.
So, the next agenda item I have is the approval for the new student activity account for the incoming freshman class, the class of 2028.
I know.
It puts a lot of
Some you
things in
have children who are
perspective.
class of 2028.
It does put a lot of things in perspective.
It does.
And that is the way it goes. We keep growing, and they keep getting younger and younger and younger, it seems like. So this year's freshman class, the class of 2028, needs to establish a student activities account so they can work on fundraising and other activities. The big purpose for the freshmen is to raise almost as much funds as possible, especially their freshman and sophomore years, because during their junior and senior years, they typically spend a lot of money. So the first 2 years is all about the fundraising. The second 2 years is all about spending the money that they fundraised, whether it be for prom, graduation, and all the other activities that they get to enjoy. All classes do maintain a student activity account over the course of their time at Douglas High School. Maintain accountability of the student activity funds and to process expenses related to class activities. We do not have a class president yet because we are still collecting nomination papers, and the elections are going to be held next week, because that is something that you have to kind of get on right away and have that completed right away. Unfortunately, the fourth day of school is a little too quick. But students are required to have their speeches for the positions that they want in by, I believe, next Tuesday, and the elections will be held next Thursday. So that's the process that we're taking. I do see that in our agenda item summary that Ms. Ryan was appointed as class advisor is written in here. I apologize for that typo, as Mrs. Whitkiss is the
Awesome.
appointed person for that. Okay, Mrs. Whitkiss works in our Stars and Stripes program, and she has been a fantastic addition. She was a first-year teacher for us last year. She's a second-year teacher for us this year, and she's been really good. I have liked having her in the building. She does everything she can for all the students and the school. I can't thank her enough for taking on this responsibility. So obviously there's no financial impact because it's funds raised and funds spent out of that same account. So if the school committee is in agreement, I hope to move to approve the creation of a student activity account entitled The Class of 2028.
Motion made by Beth, seconded
Teresa.
by Teresa. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, as Greg comes up, we'll just segue into it. There were some Title IX regulations that changed and go into effect this year. We worked with our school attorney, Michael Joyce, for rewriting the policy, and Greg's going to highlight what a lot of the changes are. For those who are watching at home and may not know how policy changes work in the school committee, we need to do 3 readings. So today's the first of 3 readings. So we'll present today the changes, we'll present on the 18th again the changes, and we'll present again on, I believe it's October 2nd, the changes. And then the school committee will officially vote this into policy. And what it does is, again, school committee policy, it's important. And you're a public body, this is a public meeting, and we want to make sure that every opportunity is given to people to come and voice their opinions, concerns, if we're changing or implementing a policy that could be controversial. This is law, so we really don't have much of a leg to stand on, but I just want to explain the 3 policy reading if people are watching from home. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Rosenthal.
Thank you, Dr. Viera. So you have examples of the previous Title IX policy, which it's file AC, non-discrimination. This was adopted from the MASC policy recommendations. And in this, you'll see a lot of, the beginning is good practices, where the school committee intends to promote the rights and responsibilities. These are practices, not so much policies. Where if you look at the new AC non-discrimination, it identifies the different subgroups that could be impacted due to discrimination. You'll see that in it, very importantly, the superintendent shall designate at least one administrator to serve as the compliance officer. So it highlights that right there in the second paragraph, after identifying that we do not tolerate any discrimination of any kind. Where the previous one, it kind of talks about different practices that will work towards integrated society, and not so much as a policy. It does incorporate some of the school committee policy that previously exists with the non-discrimination that extended to students and staff, that's brought into the language with the new policy. There is an additional language, again, talking about a Title IX officer that is designated by the superintendent. And that leads into a lengthy, about a 16-page procedural, which does not have to be voted upon by school committee. But that ties into our previous file, which is ACAB, sexual harassment. So the new policy is going to incorporate our is going to incorporate AC and ACAB, because the language becomes redundant. It's almost identical. So it's all going to be underneath AC, where we do not tolerate discrimination of any kind, and it outlines which categories that falls into. But then it also identifies the need to address any sexual harassment, but that falls underneath discrimination as well, non-discrimination.
Can we look to find more inclusive pronouns in this one, because everything says he or she, and I don't know, not everybody's he or she. So could we maybe look to find a different way to say the individual?
We can reach out to Mike Joyce.
Yes.
And maybe not, not have it be.
Yep,
Check with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We should have proper pronouns.
yep, absolutely.
Yeah, we could definitely talk with legal on that one.
That's why we do 3 readings.
So, for the most part, it's kind of consolidating 2 policies into one. It's taking out good practices, which we should be promoting anyways, but it's not necessary policy. And it highlights the superintendent's responsibility to designate a Title IX officer, which will then support any types of sexual harassment investigations, which was our ACAB policy. I know that's kind of just a tip of the iceberg kind of overview, but that's sort of the summary between the 2 policies.
Dr. Rosenthal will be here at the 18th meeting to go over some other special education pieces, and we'll do this policy reading again. So, and we'll talk to Mike Joyce to make those pronoun changes and what his recommendations are to do that, so everything's covered. But also, if you have additional questions between now and then for the 3rd reading.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the School Business and Operations Manager's Report.
I do want to kind of chime in, but I'll stay up here instead of sit over there. But I do want to say with, the areas under my jurisdiction, I mean, again, the, school lunch, everything wonderful, and I want to reiterate that when we had the changes in staff with the food service director, I want to say again how wonderful all the cafeteria staff were. When I was trying to do it, and then we had Raquel doing kind of off-site, they were fabulous. With the new director coming in, it's just really been really going well. Again, big kudos out to the facilities manager and the custodial staff. Again, shortage of staff, and they're still working a lot of hours. We do have an interview with someone tomorrow. Keep your fingers crossed. We get one more person. We did have that hire recently, so we are heading in the right direction. So I'm thinking that we're on a roll with hires with the custodial staff. The interview that we have tomorrow is for the partial district-wide grounds in the primary school position. That one's from 10 to 6. So it covers, locking up 2 for the Whiten Community Center as well. But it is really difficult when you have a shortage of staff, but people really they have been really, really stepping up and helping each other out. Even when we have, like the example I gave earlier with the high school staff, and I'm sure other cafeteria staff helping the middle school. I mean, they just jump right in and help out, whether it's food, or I've got some bread, or I've got some turkey, or, I'll bring it down to you, or whatever it is. Kudos to that. And busing has been really, here's some wood right here. Busing has been going really, really great. And somebody had mentioned, one of you had mentioned earlier, or maybe it was one of the principals, about, the parents, being appreciative. Now, years back, and I hate to say that word, but pre-you-know-what, you get all kinds of, I used to actually keep an Excel spreadsheet like this. People complaining about their stop, and it's 4 feet from here or there, or whatever. We never get phone calls like that anymore. I mean, it's just a different world, which is a good thing. And I did get a few phone calls from some kindergarten parents. It's brand new, and it's just, I did go over to the elementary school on the first day. Great to see the kids, and what Bob said about seeing the 6th graders. I ran into a couple that, I was kind of going down towards my office, and she turned the corner. She had the cute little braids and said, "I don't know where to go. I'm in 6th grade." I said, "Oh, I'll help you out." But it's just, and the kids definitely do seem better this year too. I don't know, like quieter. So we're off to a really, really great start to the school year. So I know I'm not one of the principals or the other directors, but I want to reiterate too what I've seen. And I also, again, want to put out a humongous thank you to Ellen Stand, my assistant. She has been working, we've been working really, really hard all through the summer, the shortage of staff in my office, and we're getting through that first payroll tomorrow. And Beth, just a reminder. And she's been working extremely hard. I'm very, very grateful. I know she's very tired. She's been working very, very hard. And with Michelle Michelle Esposito, our new staff member, she has just stepped right in, and I know things, they are already getting better. It just takes time from a training perspective, but things are on a really good roll with getting some staff in. And I think that's probably throughout the district. We've seen some really great new hires, like throughout the district, and it's just really, so I think we're turning a corner. We're getting away from that, that thing that happened a few years ago. Maybe things are going to keep going in the right direction. So I just wanted to say that as well. The only other thing that one other thing I do want to mention is that we did submit to the capital improvement committee what Paul and I put together to submit. But what we are going to do from now on, and we did it years ago, and I don't know why, when I first it just kind of just stopped being done. So we're going to be bringing that to you as well on the 18th. Okay, so you'll have that information, and from now on, it'll be posted on our website as well. So we'll be providing some information to you. We just had a 2-week notice, so I actually didn't even get it in on time. It was due last Friday. I got it in yesterday. Or what was yesterday?
It was yesterday.
Yeah, it was yesterday. Yeah, just yesterday. So it was a quick turnaround, but we will be updating you on that as well on the 18th. Okay. So I do have for this evening, we do have one more FY 2024 reclassification for year end. And this is it. I promise. So it's just moving from 262 grant into the preschool revolving fund because we had too much in the grant. So we just had to make an adjustment there to close out the books and close out the grant.
Any questions? If not, I'd be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the FY 2024 reclassification number 19 year end at tonight's school committee meeting of September 4th, 2024.
Motion made by Teresa, second by?
Meg.
Second by Meg. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thanks. Anything else?
Okay, thank you. I'm all set. Thank you very much.
Any topics not anticipated?
No, it's time.
We will be going to an executive session, and the executive session is used to discuss the strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental impact on the bargaining or litigation position of a government body, and to conduct collective bargaining, review the contract language of proposed revision strategies for a successful completion of the agreement between the Douglas Public Schools and DESPA. We will not come back into open session. We will adjourn from our executive session. So I'd be looking for a roll call vote to enter into executive session.
Beth Bergstrom, aye.
Teresa Brooks, aye.
Meg Rods and I.
Julia Lagerholm, aye.
Heather Moore and I. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful